Hey guys, tonight we're heading back in time to ancient China, but we're not going to be talking about emperors' great walls or epic battles. Instead, we're going to slip quietly past the guards and into the most private of spaces, the ancient Chinese bedroom. We're going to step into a dimly lit chamber, the air thick with the scent of sandalwood and old silk, the floor cool beneath your bare feet. You can almost feel the weight of the embroidered quilts, the soft rustle of linen against your skin. This is a place not just for sleep, but for quiet reflection, for spiritual preparation, and for rituals that govern the transition from the waking world to the world of dreams. You're entering a space where the simple act of going to bed was a meticulously planned ceremony. The reality is, if you were actually to try and navigate these rituals without knowing what you were doing, you probably wouldn't survive the first night. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. You can also drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing in the doorway, a stranger in a familiar-looking room. The bed, or rather the sleeping platform, dominates the space. It's not just a piece of furniture. It's the heart of the room, a sacred stage for the nightly performance of rest. You see, for the ancient Chinese, the bedroom, or qinshi, was considered the most intimate and vulnerable part of the home. It was where one's personal energy, or kai, was most susceptible to external influences, both good and bad. This is why the nightly rituals began long before one's head ever touched a pillow. They were not merely about comfort. They were about cleansing, protecting, and preparing one's entire being for a state of unconsciousness. The very act of stepping over the threshold into the qinshi was a moment of transition, a crossing from the loud, chaotic world outside into a realm of peace and spiritual solitude. It was a formal, intentional separation. You might think of it as the ultimate form of turning off the notifications, but with more incense and less swiping. The preparation of the bedroom itself was a ritual. Before you even thought about getting into bed, the space had to be consecrated. Servants, or sometimes the lady of the house herself, would perform a light sweeping of the area, not just to remove dust, but to symbolically clear away any lingering negative energy from the day. They would open a window even in the cold to allow stale air to escape and fresh cow to enter. This wasn't just some ancient form of ventilation. It was a deeply ingrained belief that a stagnant room could lead to a restless spirit. A mainstream historical fact you might not know is that many wealthy households had special wooden screens and room dividers known as pingfeng that could be moved around to create a more private sleeping area within a larger room, further enclosing the sacred space. As you move closer to the bed, you notice the carefully placed objects on a small side table. There's a delicate porcelain basin, a small flask of what you assume is perfumed water, and a few small, intricately carved wooden figurines. These weren't just decorations. The figurines, often of deities or auspicious animals like tortoises and cranes, were placed there as guardians. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some households would place a small, smooth river stone under the bed, believing it would ground the sleeper and prevent their spirit from wandering too far during the night. Historians still argue whether this was a common practice or a more regional superstitious custom. But for you, standing there, it feels less like a superstition and more like an anchor. You can feel the quiet weight of tradition in every object, in every deliberate arrangement. The air in this room feels different, thicker, more intentional. This isn't just a place to sleep. It's a living testament to the ancient belief that the bedroom is a sacred, personal sanctuary, a place where the rituals of the day end and the spiritual journey of the night begins. The soft light of a nearby oil lamp casts long shadows, making the room seem both larger and more intimate at the same time. The world outside has faded away entirely. As you move further into the room, your eyes are drawn to the sleeping platform itself. It's raised often several feet off the ground, a design that served a very practical purpose to avoid the dampness and cold that would settle on the floor. But there's a symbolic layer to it as well, elevating the act of sleep and making the sleeper less vulnerable to creatures and spirits that might roam the floor at night. This isn't just a bed, it's a small, elevated island of safety. A mainstream historical fact is that in northern China, these platforms were often a kang, a brick or clay bed that was heated from below by a fire, providing a source of warmth in the bitter winters. This was an ingenious form of radiant floor heating, but for your bed. It makes you wonder why we don't have something like that now. No more cold feet in the middle of the night. The bedding itself is a thing of wonder. You notice a series of meticulously stacked layers. The mattress, if you can call it that, is a thick pad of stuffed cotton or reeds, providing a firm but supportive base. On top of this are the sheets, often made of fine linen or even silk for the wealthy. The silk would have felt incredibly smooth and cool against the skin, a luxury that went beyond mere comfort. It was believed that the smooth, unbroken surface of silk would allow one's qi to flow freely undisturbed by the coarse fibers of other materials. This is an example of the ancient belief that every physical object in the bedroom had an energetic consequence. You reach out and touch the quilts. They are not like the puffy comforters of today. Instead, you feel a series of thinner layered blankets. These were often made from silk floss, which is incredibly light, yet surprisingly warm. The outer covers are often intricately embroidered with symbols of good fortune, dragons, phoenixes, clouds, or the ever-present longevity symbols. These weren't just decorative. They were woven prayers, wrapping the sleeper in a tapestry of protection and good wishes. This brings up a quirky or fringe tidbit. Some very superstitious families would insist that the embroidery be done by a family member who was known for their purity of spirit, believing that the positive energy of the embroiderer would be transferred into the fabric and, by extension, into the person sleeping under it. It's like a personalized, hand-stitched blessing. The pillows, however, are perhaps the most surprising element. They are not soft and downy. As you gently lift one, you feel its hard, unyielding surface. They are often made of porcelain carved wood or even hardened leather. This might seem incredibly uncomfortable to you, but there was a specific reason for it. The hard surface was believed to keep the head cool, which was considered vital for a good night's sleep. A cool head, according to traditional Chinese medicine, allowed the Kuo-Wai to descend from the head to the body, calming the mind and preventing restless dreams. It's a very different approach to sleep than our modern sink into a cloud philosophy. Historians still argue whether the hardness was purely for health reasons, or if it also served to prevent elaborate hairstyles from being disturbed during the night, a kind of ancient hair-saving device. You can almost feel the weight of these objects, not just their physical weight, but the weight of the tradition they carry. The bed is a stage, the bedding is the costume, and the act of preparing it is the prelude to the performance of sleep. The careful arrangement of each layer, the deliberate choice of materials, the intricate symbolism woven into every thread, it all speaks to a profound respect for the nightly transition. It reminds you that the bedroom in this world is a place of profound intentionality. It's a space where a simple, practical need like rest is elevated to a meaningful, ritualized act. The air feels cool now, and the bed, though strange, looks inviting. You can imagine the feeling of lying down on the firm surface, the smooth silk sheets against your skin, and the beautifully embroidered quilts draped over you like a blessing. It's an entirely different kind of comfort, one rooted not just in softness, but in purpose. With the bedding now a silent invitation, your attention shifts to the very air you're breathing. It carries a subtle, complex scent, not a modern, artificial fragrance, but something organic and layered. You trace the source to a small, ornate burner sitting on a low table. This is where the ritual of scent and air purification begins. In ancient China, the air in the sleeping chamber was believed to be just as important as the bedding itself, carrying energies that could influence one's dreams and overall well-being. A mainstream historical fact is that incense, or qiang, was used widely not just for religious ceremonies, but for everyday life, with special blends reserved for the bedroom. The incense you're smelling is likely a blend of sandalwood, agarwood, and maybe a touch of musk. These weren't chosen just because they smelled nice. Sandalwood, for example, was believed to have calming properties, helping to quiet the mind after a long day of work and worry. Agarwood, which was much more expensive, was thought to purify the air and ward off malevolent spirits, acting as a kind of aromatic guardian. The process of burning it was a slow, deliberate act. You can imagine the servant carefully placing a small, compressed cone of fragrant material into the burner, the smoke rising in a thin, lazy spiral. This wasn't a quick spray from a can. It was a patient, mindful release of aroma into the space. Beyond the incense, there were other methods of purification. You notice a small bowl of water with a few flower petals floating on top. This isn't just a vase, it's an integral part of the ritual. The water, often infused with jasmine or chrysanthemum petals, was meant to add a gentle, natural fragrance to the air, while also symbolizing purity and clarity. Some homes would also use small sachets, or jiangbao, filled with fragrant herbs like lavender, mint, or cloves, tucked into the bedding or hung from the bedposts. It's a much more understated and natural way of scenting a room than our current reliance on synthetic air fresheners. It also brings to mind that crocodile dung sunscreen we talked about, but thankfully, the ancient Chinese were much more discerning when it came to things you'd put in your bedroom. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some extremely superstitious families would burn small, specially prepared strips of paper with protective charms written on them. The ashes would then be collected and scattered around the bed to form an invisible barrier against bad dreams and night demons. Historians still argue whether this was a common practice or a more regional, isolated superstition, but the fact that it existed at all speaks to the profound fear of the unknown that came with the darkness. The act of cleansing the air was a literal and symbolic way of creating a bubble of safety. The air in the room, now infused with the gentle, calming scents, feels like a blanket itself. The smells are not overpowering. They're subtle, almost a whisper, encouraging your mind to slow down and your body to relax. It's an invitation to let go of the day's tensions and anxieties. You can feel your shoulders drop a little, your breathing becoming more shallow. This is not just a bedroom anymore. It's a sensory chamber designed to lull you into a state of tranquility. It's a very different approach to sleep than simply throwing on some headphones and hoping for the best. The focus here is on actively creating the conditions for rest, rather than just waiting for it to happen. It's a proactive, not reactive approach to the end of the day. Having prepared the air with calming scents, You now turn to the most personal ritual of the night, the final cleanse. This is not a full bath, which would have been an earlier, more extensive affair, but a meticulous and important part of the evening ritual. You notice the small porcelain basin and a soft linen cloth already prepared. You see, in ancient China, personal hygiene wasn't just about cleanliness. It was about symbolically washing away the dust worries and negative influences of the day. A mainstream historical fact is that people rarely bathed in the modern sense. Instead, they would use bowls of hot, perfumed water and cloths to wash their faces, hands, and feet. This ritual was called qishu, and it was a daily practice for all but the poorest classes. The ritual of the evening wash was a slow and deliberate act. You can imagine holding the warm, scented cloth and wiping away the grime of the day from your face and neck. The warmth of the water is comforting, a physical release of tension. This act was not just about dirt. It was about a mental and spiritual reset. The washing of the hands was particularly important, as hands were the primary tools of interaction with the world. You worked with them, you touched others with them, you handled money and tools. Cleaning them before bed was a way of symbolically severing the day's connections and preparing for the isolation of sleep. The washing of the feet was also crucial. Feet carried you through the world, from the market to the garden, and were believed to be a conduit for earthy external energies. Washing them was a way of grounding yourself and leaving the day's journey behind. The water was often infused with herbs like ginger, which was believed to have a purifying and warming effect. It was an essential part of the ritual. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some noble families would add a small amount of powdered pearl or jade to their washing water, believing that these precious minerals would absorb negative chi and imbue the skin with a healthy glow. It sounds a bit like a medieval skincare ad, but it speaks to the lengths people would go to in a pursuit of physical and spiritual purity. The whole thing feels less like a chore and more like a gentle ceremony, a quiet moment of self-care before the real rest begins. You don't just splash water on your face and call it a day. You engage in a mindful cleansing act. It was also a moment of quiet reflection. As you washed, you were encouraged to think about the day, to release any resentments or frustrations, and to prepare your mind for a state of calm. This was your final chance to check your mental baggage at the door before entering the world of dreams. You can feel the sense of relief that comes with this simple, repetitive motion. It's a way of saying, the day is done, and so are its troubles. Historians still argue whether these rituals were a genuine spiritual practice, or if they were largely social and aesthetic customs. But for you in this moment, it feels deeply personal. The scent of the herbs, the warmth of the water, the feel of the linen against your skin, it's all part of a soothing sensory experience. After you're done, you use a dry cloth to gently pat your face and hands. You are now cleansed both physically and symbolically, ready for the next stage of the nightly journey. The room feels even more quiet now, a bubble of peace. The day's noise and clamor seem to have been washed away, leaving you with nothing but the soft sounds of your own breathing and the gentle hum of a nearby fan. It's a complete, profound transition from the outside world. The air is clean, your body is cleansed, and a profound stillness has settled over the room. But before you can get comfortable, you notice something else in the corner of your eye, small, curious objects tucked into the corners of the room or hanging from the bedposts. These are not decorations. They are talismans, silent guardians placed here to ward off bad spirits and ensure a safe passage into the world of dreams. You see, for the ancient Chinese, the night was not just a time of rest, but a time of vulnerability. The darkness was a realm where malevolent entities Restless ghosts and night demons could roam freely, and the bedroom was a prime target. A mainstream historical fact is that protective charms and symbols were an essential part of daily life, but they were particularly important in the sleeping chamber. You see a small, intricately carved wooden charm hanging from a bedpost. It's shaped like a lion or a tiger, powerful animals in Chinese mythology, believed to scare away evil spirits. You also notice a small mirror polished to a perfect shine, placed on a nearby table. This isn't for checking your hair. The mirror was believed to reflect and confuse any bad spirits that might try to enter the room, turning their own negativity back on them. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some households would also hang a small red thread from the window latch. The color red was considered highly auspicious and powerful against evil, and the thread was thought to form a protective web, a kind of spiritual tripwire that no negative entity could cross. It's a bit like a low-tech version of a security system, but for ghosts. You also see a small folded piece of paper with some red ink on it tucked under a loose floorboard. This is likely a charm or spell written by a Taoist priest, a powerful incantation designed to bless the room and protect the sleeper. Historians still argue whether these practices were a genuine part of religious belief or more of a widespread folk superstition passed down through generations. But regardless of their origin, they speak to a profound sense of anxiety about the nightly journey. It's an act of defiance, a way of saying, I will not be afraid of the dark. Beyond the talismans, certain rituals were performed to solidify this protection. You can imagine a family member or servant lighting a special stick of incense with a unique, pungent smell one believed to be repulsive to malevolent entities. Or perhaps they would have a small bell or chime that they would ring gently 3 times before bed, the sound thought to alert the good spirits and wake them up to their protective duties. This isn't just about passive protection. It's an active, deliberate engagement with the unseen world. It's a way of asserting control in a state of helplessness. All of these small actions, from the placement of a wooden charm to the gentle ringing of a bell, build a kind of psychological and spiritual fortress around the sleeping platform. You can almost feel the weight of these protective layers, a kind of comforting shield that allows you to finally relax. The air seems to hum with a quiet energy, the room feeling both deeply peaceful and powerfully guarded. It's an entirely different perspective on what it means to go to sleep. It's not just about closing your eyes. It's about ensuring that the world you enter in your dreams is as safe as the world you are leaving behind. You feel the weight of these traditions and understand why every small object has a purpose. With the bedroom now a purified and protected sanctuary, you are finally ready to lie down. But the journey into sleep isn't just about the physical act of resting your head. Even the position in which you lie was considered a matter of great importance. You see, the ancient Chinese believed that the body was a microcosm of the universe, and just as the universe had its own flow of energy, so did your body. A mainstream historical fact is that according to traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, the best position for sleep was on your right side. This posture was believed to aid digestion, as the stomach and liver were positioned to naturally drain their contents. It was also thought to take pressure off the heart, promoting better circulation and a more peaceful rest. It's a very practical and logical approach to body mechanics, filtered through a lens of ancient medical wisdom. But beyond the practical, there was a spiritual dimension to your sleeping posture. You can imagine yourself with the soft, embroidered quilts pulled up to your chin, adjusting your body to the prescribed position. The act itself is a kind of gentle surrender, an acknowledgement that you are aligning your body not just for comfort, but for health and harmony. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some masters of Taoist philosophy believed that sleeping with your head pointed to the north was the most auspicious position, as it would align your body with the Earth's magnetic fields, allowing for a deeper and more restorative sleep. They believed that this alignment would help your soul, or Shen, to remain safely within your body during the night, preventing it from wandering off and getting lost. It's a beautiful, if a little dramatic idea. And then there are the dreams. Once you're in position, the world of dreams awaits. And for the ancient Chinese, this was not a random, chaotic jumble of images. Dreams were a sacred space, a conduit for communication from the gods, ancestors, or even one's own subconscious. Dream interpreters were highly sought after, and people would often remember their dreams in great detail, recounting them in the morning in the hope of unlocking a hidden message. Historians still argue whether the interpretation of dreams was more of a psychological practice to understand one's own anxieties, or if it was truly considered a way to divine the future. But for you lying here, you can feel the weight of that expectation. The night is no longer just a period of blankness. It is an active and meaningful part of your life. The quiet of the room is profound. You can hear your own breathing, slow and steady. The scents from the incense and herbs are subtle now, almost an afterthought, but they continue to work their magic, lulling you into a state of deep relaxation. You can feel the firmness of the hard pillow, a strange but grounding sensation under your head. The cool silk of the sheets feels like a second skin. Everything has been prepared to lead you to this exact moment. You close your eyes, your body in the prescribed position, and you let your mind drift. You are not just going to sleep. You are embarking on a journey into the self, and you are prepared for whatever comes. Before you even close your eyes for the night, there's one more quiet, deliberate ritual that must take place. Your gaze shifts to a small, low table in the corner of the room, set with a delicate porcelain teapot and 2 matching cups. This is not just a cup of tea, it's a ceremonial, calming ritual designed to bring the day to a gentle close. A mainstream historical fact is that the ancient Chinese were master tea brewers, and different types of tea were used for different times of day. The evening tea was not the stimulating black or green tea you might drink in the morning. It was a soothing, meditative brew meant to calm the mind and prepare the body for sleep. The tea itself is likely a blend of chrysanthemum flowers, jasmine, or maybe a mild fermented oolong. You can imagine the gentle process, the heating of the water over a small charcoal brazier, the delicate steeping of the leaves and the pouring of the steaming liquid into the small cup. The aroma is soft and floral, a final fragrant note for the day. You can almost feel the warmth of the small, handleless cup in your hands. This is an act of profound mindfulness. You're not just gulping down a beverage. You're engaging with the process, from the steam rising from the spout to the subtle shift in color as the tea steeps. It's a moment of quiet, focused attention that pulls you entirely into the present moment and away from the anxieties of the past and future. The tea ceremony was also an opportunity for quiet reflection. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some families would make a point of drinking their evening tea in complete silence, believing that any spoken words would disturb the calming energy of the ritual. It was a time to simply be, to let go of conversation and social performance, and to just exist in the peaceful quiet of the room. This makes sense in a world without podcasts and late-night TV. The absence of external noise forces you inward. Historians still argue whether this quiet ritual was for spiritual purification, or if it was just an ancient form of a digital detox a deliberate act of quietude in a world without screens. As you sip the tea, you can feel its warmth, spreading through you, a gentle signal to your body that it's time to slow down. The bittersweet taste is a final sensory anchor to the waking world before you drift off. It's an incredibly simple act, yet it's filled with layers of meaning. The tea is a purifier, a comforter, and a bridge between the day and the night. It's the final, gentle push into the world of dreams. You can almost hear the soft rustle of your clothes as you sit, the gentle clinking of the cup, and the quiet sound of your own breathing. The world outside has completely vanished. The only reality is this warm cup, this quiet room, and this profound moment of peace. With the calming tea sipped and the last drops of warmth absorbed, your body is ready, but your mind is still a little bit active, a little too loud for a peaceful slumber. This is where the next part of the ritual comes in the art of sound and story. You see, silence wasn't always the goal. The ancient Chinese understood that the mind, like a restless child, often needed a gentle distraction to let go of the day. A mainstream historical fact is that families, particularly in the educated and noble classes, would have someone read to them before bed. This wasn't for entertainment so much as a kind of meditative focus. You can imagine a low, gentle voice, a family member or a trusted servant beginning a tale. Maybe it's a classic poem, an epic saga of gods and heroes, or a philosophical text. The content wasn't as important as the cadence of the words. The steady rhythm of the reading, the repetition of familiar phrases, and the calming tone of the voice all worked together to create a hypnotic effect. It wasn't about following the plot. It was about surrendering to the sound. The words themselves become a kind of lullaby, a soft wave that carries your consciousness away from the shores of wakefulness. Beyond the spoken word, music played a vital role. You can almost hear the soft, ethereal notes of a guqin or a pipa, a lute-like instrument played gently in a nearby room. The music was never loud or jarring. It was designed to be soothing the notes long and lingering, a kind of auditory massage for the brain. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some households believed that playing music, specifically composed for the evening with its minor keys and slow tempo, would attract benevolent spirits to the room and help guide the sleeper's soul into a peaceful dream state. It's a bit like putting on a sleep playlist, but with far more spiritual gravitas and a lot more live musicians. Historians still argue whether the guqin music played was for specific therapeutic purposes, as outlined in some medical texts, or if it was simply a cultural tradition for relaxation. The combination of story and sound created a perfect cocoon for the mind. You are no longer alone with your thoughts, which can be the biggest enemy of sleep. Instead, you are enveloped by a gentle, external narrative that allows your own internal dialogue to quiet down. You can feel the tension in your jaw and shoulders start to melt away. The world is reduced to the sound of a soft voice, the pluck of a string, and the gentle whisper of the wind outside the open window. It's a deliberate, thoughtful transition from the state of active thinking to the state of passive listening, which is the gateway to rest. This is a far cry from scrolling through your phone in bed, which, let's be honest, is the exact opposite of what this ritual is trying to achieve. The soft sounds and stories have lulled your mind, but your body needs one final physical signal that the day is done. This brings us to the next part of the ritual, the final nightcap. This wasn't the kind of drink you'd have at a bar. Instead, it was a specialized tonic, a medicinal beverage designed to soothe and prepare the body for the deepest kind of rest. A mainstream historical fact is that throughout Chinese history, fermented rice wine, or huangju, was often consumed in small quantities before bed. It was believed to have warming properties that would aid circulation and relax the muscles, releasing any lingering physical tension from the day. This was a far cry from a modern shot of whiskey. The alcohol content was typically very low, and it was often infused with herbs. The tonics, however, were even more important. You can imagine a servant bringing a small earthenware pot still warm with a fragrant dark liquid inside. This isn't wine. It's a herbal concoction, a mixture of roots, berries, and fungi brewed slowly over hours. These tonics, or yaoshan, were a key part of traditional Chinese medicine and were customized for the individual. If you were feeling anxious, you might be given a tonic with calming juju berries and lotus seeds. If you were tired and weak, you might receive one with ginseng or goji berries to replenish your energy reserves. It was an ancient, personalized pharmaceutical, a final dose of wellness designed to address the specific ailments of the day. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some extremely particular individuals would insist that their tonic be served in a specific type of porcelain cup, believing that the color of the clay or the glaze would affect the medicinal properties of the brew. For example, a blue and white cup was sometimes favored for its perceived ability to bring coolness and clarity to the mind. Historians still argue whether this was a genuine belief in the properties of the cup or just a kind of placebo effect, a psychological trick to enhance the ritual's efficacy. But for you holding that warm cup in your hands, the weight of the tradition feels real. The bitter or slightly sweet taste of the tonic is a final definitive marker of the end of the day. The act of drinking this nightcap is a final mindful surrender. You are consciously taking something into your body that is meant to heal and restore it. It's the last intentional action before you drift into unconsciousness. The warmth of the tonic spreads through your stomach and limbs a gentle, physical reassurance that everything is going to be okay. And it's a quiet moment, just you, the warm cup, and the slow, deliberate act of letting go. The last drop of the tonic is gone, and a new kind of darkness has begun to creep into the room. But it is not the deep, empty darkness of a power outage. It is a managed, intentional darkness, a state of controlled twilight. This brings us to the ritual of lighting. In ancient China, light was not just something you turned on and off. It was a resource to be managed and a symbol to be respected. A mainstream historical fact is that the primary source of artificial light in a home was a simple oil lamp. These were typically small, made of ceramic or metal, and used vegetable oils or animal fats for fuel. The light they cast was warm and flickering, far less harsh than our modern electric lights. The transition to night began long before the final extinguish. You can imagine the servants or a family member going through the house and slowly, methodically dimming the lights. They might extinguish a few lamps in the main hall, leaving only a single, glowing wick to guide their way. This wasn't just about saving oil. It was a deliberate act of easing the body and mind into a state of rest. The slow dimming of the light signaled to the body's internal clock that it was time to wind down. In the bedroom, a single oil lamp would be left burning. This was not just for practical purposes in case you needed to get up in the middle of the night. It also served a ritual purpose. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some households would leave a single low-burning lamp on a high shelf, believing that the constant soft light would keep restless spirits at bay and guide the sleeper's soul safely back to their body should it wander during a dream. It was a kind of spiritual beacon. The light also cast long dancing shadows on the walls, creating a serene and almost otherworldly atmosphere. Historians still argue whether the practice of leaving a single lamp on was a widespread superstition, or if it was simply a matter of convenience and a byproduct of the lack of good matches. The final act of the night before you close your eyes is the extinguishing of this last flame. You can almost feel the gentle whoosh of air as the servant uses a small conical tool to snuff out the wick. The room is plunged into a profound, velvety darkness. The scent of the extinguished oil lamp hangs in the air for a moment, a final memory of the light. Now you are in a state of total darkness. It's a completely different kind of sensory experience than what we're used to. It's an invitation to let go, to surrender to the night. There are no screens, no glowing buttons, no ambient light from the street outside. Just you, the silence, and the profound, peaceful darkness. With the room now in a profound and peaceful darkness, you feel the seasonal changes that were a key part of the ancient bedroom rituals. You see, the ancient Chinese believed that our bodies were microcosms of the natural world, and just as the seasons change, so too must our routines, including the way we prepared for sleep. This wasn't just a matter of comfort. It was a core principle of health and harmony known as yangsheng. A mainstream historical fact is that this concept guided all aspects of life from diet to exercise and was especially crucial for sleep. You can almost feel the difference in the air depending on the season. In the sweltering heat of summer, the rituals would have been designed for coolness and airflow. You can imagine the bed stripped down to just a thin mat made of bamboo or woven reeds. These materials were naturally cool to the touch and allowed air to circulate beneath you, preventing you from getting overheated. In the winter, the bedding would have been layered with thick stuffed quilts filled with silk floss or cotton, and in northern China, the Kong bed would have been heated to keep you toasty warm. It was a conscious effort to align the body with the external temperature. Beyond the physical bedding, the rituals themselves would change. In the spring, a time of rebirth and growth, you can imagine the use of refreshing and invigorating scents like mint or jasmine to help cleanse the air and awaken the spirit. In the autumn, a season of decay and introspection, the focus would have shifted to grounding scents like sandalwood, and the evening tea might have included ingredients like ginger or cinnamon to provide warmth and prepare the body for the coming cold. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some extremely superstitious families would place a specific type of seasonal flower near their bed, believing that it would absorb the negative energy of the previous season and ensure a smooth transition into the next. For example, a chrysanthemum might be placed in the fall to symbolize the letting go of the past year. Historians still argue whether these seasonal flower rituals were purely aesthetic or if they were a widespread form of folk magic, a kind of simple daily ceremony to honor the changing of the guard in the natural world. These small, deliberate adjustments demonstrate a profound respect for the rhythms of nature. The ancient Chinese understood that to fight against the seasons was to fight against one's own body. Instead, they chose to work in harmony with them, using their daily rituals to support their bodies through each transition. You can feel the quiet wisdom in this practice, a sense of belonging to a larger natural cycle. It's a far more holistic approach to health than our modern practice of simply blasting the air conditioning or the heat without a second thought. As the seasons change and the bedroom rituals adapt, you notice the very layout of the room itself. This isn't just an arbitrary collection of furniture. It's a carefully considered arrangement, a physical embodiment of the principles of feng shui, which translates to wind water. A mainstream historical fact is that feng shui was a complex and ancient Chinese system of aesthetics and geomancy believed to use the laws of both heaven and earth to improve life by receiving positive hakuai. In the bedroom, this meant that every piece of furniture, and especially the bed, had a specific, deliberate place. The first and most important rule was the placement of the bed itself. It had to be positioned against a solid wall, symbolizing stability and support. You can imagine the feeling of security that comes from knowing you are literally backed up. The headboard, if there was one, would also be against this wall, ensuring that your head was protected. The bed was never placed directly facing the door, a position known as the coffin position. This was believed to be an open invitation for negative energy or spirits to enter your space while you were at your most vulnerable. The ancient Chinese believed that the qi flowing through the doorway was too fast and chaotic for a peaceful sleep. You can almost feel the draft of energy from the doorway and the comforting stillness of a bed placed safely away from it. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some extremely superstitious families would place a small bag of coins under the bed, believing that the constant passive presence of wealth would attract good fortune and prosperity while they slept. It was a form of sleep manifesting, before that was even a thing, a quiet hope for a prosperous future. Historians still argue whether this was a common folk superstition or if it was practiced only by a few and was considered bad form. Regardless, it highlights the bedroom as a place not just for rest, but for shaping one's fortune. The rest of the furniture was also carefully placed. Mirrors, for example, were never placed directly facing the bed, as they were thought to reflect and disturb a sleeper's qi. They were also believed to attract and trap restless spirits, creating a very unsettling atmosphere. You can imagine looking around and seeing no reflections, just the quiet, solid walls. Everything in the room had a purpose and a place, from the small, low table for your tea to the carefully placed chest for your clothes. There were no superfluous objects, nothing that didn't serve a purpose or contribute to the overall feeling of peace and security. The room is a sanctuary, not a storage unit. This is an entirely different approach to bedroom decor, one that prioritizes energy flow and spiritual security over mere aesthetics. With the room's energy and layout now perfectly aligned, a different kind of ritual unfolds, one reserved for two. The bedroom for many ancient Chinese couples was not just a space for sleep, but a private sanctuary for love, fertility, and shared life. You see, the rituals here were more intimate, focused on strengthening the bond between spouses and ensuring the continuation of the family line. A mainstream historical fact is that in traditional Chinese society, the primary purpose of marriage was to produce male heirs. The bedroom, therefore, became a hallowed space for fertility rituals. You can imagine the subtle, shared gestures between a husband and wife. A wife might have prepared a special warming drink for her husband, a blend of ginger and goji berries to fortify his qi and increase his vitality. The act of preparing and serving this tonic was a quiet expression of care and devotion. In turn, a husband might have gently massaged his wife's feet, a ritual that was not just about physical comfort, but about grounding her and helping to release the day's tensions. This kind of shared physical connection was a profound way of saying, I am here with you, and we are in this together. The bedding itself often held a symbolic weight for the couple. You recall the intricate embroidery from earlier. For a newly married couple, the quilts and pillows would often be embroidered with symbols of love and fertility, mandarin ducks which mate for life, pomegranates with their abundance of seeds, or pairs of butterflies symbolizing a joyous and free union. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some families would hide small auspicious objects like a pair of red dates or a few peanuts under the bridal bed, believing it would ensure a fruitful marriage and the quick arrival of children. Now, historians still argue whether this was a widespread custom or a more regional superstitious practice. But the sentiment remains clear. The bedroom was a place where a couple's hopes for the future were physically and ritually manifested. Beyond the symbols, there were shared ceremonies. A couple might have had a final, quiet tea ceremony together, or they might have spoken gentle, calming words to each other before sleep reaffirming their connection. The bedroom was where they could finally drop the social masks they wore during the day and be their true, intimate selves. It was a space for vulnerability and trust, and the rituals here were designed to reinforce that trust. They were small, repeated acts of love and care that over time built a strong and enduring bond. The intimate rituals for couples have concluded, and the final moments before sleep belong to the household staff. You see, the preparation of the chamber was a long and laborious process, and the servants' last tasks were the final, quiet brushstrokes on a masterpiece of calm. They were the ones who ensured every detail, from the perfectly placed talisman to the carefully extinguished lamp, was exactly right. A mainstream historical fact is that in ancient Chinese households, particularly those of the noble and wealthy, a vast network of servants maintained the daily rituals of the family. The last one to leave the bedroom was often a trusted personal attendant who had a final list of duties to perform. You can almost feel the gentle presence of this servant. Their movements are silent and practiced. They might have a final glance around the room, checking for any misplaced items or stray dust motes. Their job was to create a space of perfect, uninterrupted tranquility. They would adjust the blankets, just so, making sure the top quilt was perfectly aligned and that the edges were tucked in. This wasn't just about neatness, it was about symbolically sealing the bed and its occupant off from the outside world. They would also likely have a final duty to attend to the small oil lamp, either dimming it to a mere flicker or snuffing it out entirely depending on the family's preference. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some servants were trained to stand by the bedroom door for a few minutes after the light was out, listening to the occupants breathing. They were taught to recognize the subtle changes in the sound of breath that signaled a transition from a light to a deep sleep. This was a kind of ancient, low-tech sleep monitoring. It's a testament to the level of care and detail that went into these rituals. Historians still argue whether this was a common practice or more of a regional specialized duty, but the idea of a servant quietly monitoring your sleep is a striking image. The servant's final task was often a symbolic one. They might place a small, fragrant sachet on a nearby table, or gently close a window that was left open for a moment. This was the final act of the day, a quiet, reassuring moment that everything was taken care of. You are completely at peace knowing that someone else has taken on the burden of the day's final chores. The room is no longer just a space. It is a perfectly prepared vessel for the journey into dreams, all thanks to the quiet, unseen labor that went into it. The final rituals of the night have concluded, and you have slipped into a deep, dreamless sleep. But the story doesn't end there. The final part of this journey is the morning, the waking moment, a new set of rituals designed to prepare you for the day ahead. You see, the ancient Chinese understood that the transition from night to day was just as important as the transition from day to night. A mainstream historical fact is that the morning rituals, or chaoxiao, were designed to clear the mind and invigorate the body, setting a positive tone for the entire day. You wake slowly, not to a jarring alarm clock, but to the gentle, gradual sound of the world outside. Maybe it's the soft cooing of a bird or the distant sound of someone sweeping a courtyard. A servant might enter quietly and gently open the window, letting in a soft wash of light and fresh air. This wasn't just for light. It was to let the old stagnant kai of the night escape, and to let the fresh, invigorating kai of the morning flow in. The first ritual of the morning was often a simple wash, similar to the one at night, but with a different focus. The water might have been infused with invigorating herbs like ginseng or citrus peels. The purpose was to wipe away any lingering dream fragments and to awaken the senses. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some people would practice a form of face slapping, a gentle tapping of the face and neck with the fingertips to stimulate blood flow and awaken their facial meridians. It's a bit like a pre-caffeinated energy boost. Historians still argue whether this was a form of self-massage or a kind of symbolic way of slapping away the last remnants of sleep. After the wash, a light breakfast would be served, often a thin congee or a bowl of rice porridge. This was a gentle way of breaking the fast, and it was often accompanied by a morning tea, a more robust blend to invigorate the mind. The morning rituals were an act of saying, "I am here, I am awake, and I am ready for the day." They were a bookend to the nightly ceremonies, a complete cycle of care for the mind, body, and spirit. The journey is complete. The ancient bedroom with its scents, sounds, and rituals has now become a waking space again, ready for the business of the day. The world outside is awake, and you are ready to meet it, having been fully cleansed and restored by the ceremonies of the night. Now, as the script comes to a close, it's time to slow down. Let the images from this journey fade gently from your mind. The scents of sandalwood and silk are a distant memory now, and the quiet sounds of the ancient bedroom are a soft hum in the background. The journey is over, and your mind is free to rest, to find its own quiet space. You are no longer a traveler in ancient China. You are here in your own bed, in the quiet of your own night. Let your breathing slow, let your thoughts soften, and let the gentle hum of the fan or the quiet of your room lull you into a deep and peaceful slumber. The story has done its work. Now it's time for you to do yours. Just rest. Let go. Close your eyes. Sweet dreams.